Hi, my name's David Bell. I'm a professor of economics at the University of Stirling. This is a short guide to Scotland's public finances. Understanding these finances is an important part of the understanding of what's going on in the referendum campaign in Scotland. Okay, let's start with public spending in Scotland. That's spending by the Scottish Government, by the UK Government in Scotland, or by the UK Government on behalf of Scots that may take place outside Scotland. We've got a number of different categories: social protection, health, education, defence, and everything else. Everything else covers things like transport, culture, housing, etc. And let's just start with them. That costs about £20 billion and has been pretty flat since 2008-9 up to 2012-13, which is the latest year for which we have data. Defence spending is not mainly spent in Scotland, it's spent on behalf of Scots and is around £3.5 billion. Education and training takes another £6 or £7 billion, again fairly flat over this period of time. Health takes around £10 or £11 billion, again fairly flat because of the UK government's policies in respect of trying to get the UK out of severe deficit and debt issues. The biggest category of all is social protection. That covers all welfare benefits, the state pension, and some social care and housing spending. So in total, public spending in Scotland has gone up from just short of £60 billion in 2008-9 to £65 billion in 2012-13. Okay, let's look at the tax revenue side. There are a variety of taxes. Let's start with income tax, standard part of the taxman's armoury, worth around £10 billion, just over £10 billion throughout the period 8-9 to 12-13. National insurance, which is income tax by any other name, adds another 7 or 8 billion. Taking the total tax just short of 20 billion from direct taxes on people's income. VAT, sales tax, has gone up quite a bit, partly because in response to the fiscal deficit, the UK government increased the rate of VAT, and as a result, revenues from this source have increased over time. Other taxes, there's a whole bunch of other things: air passenger duty, stamp duty, council tax, business rates, and so on. And together they add up to quite a lot, but each one of them is relatively small. So that takes us up to around £43 billion of revenues. Add to that corporation tax, around between £2 and £3 billion. An important tax, though, because this is the one which the Scottish Government in its white paper intends to cut as a mechanism for increasing Scotland's rate of growth, effectively by attracting more foreign direct investment. The last item, and an important item in the debate about Scotland's finances, is North Sea oil, and what's obvious about it is that the revenues from this source are pretty volatile. They've been as high as £12 billion over the period and as low as about £5. So in the last year they contributed around £6 billion, and there's great debate about where that's going. Now, the amount of spending taken from the last slide is shown in the line, the blue line at the top of the slide. That's known as total managed expenditure. And one can see pretty easily that there's a gap between the total revenues on the one hand and total managed expenditure on the other. That's a fiscal deficit, and if Scotland were independent, borrowing would be required to fill that gap. You could raise taxes, but raising taxes, for example, a standard approach might be to increase the basic rate of income tax. 1 pence on the basic rate basically will add between 200 and 400 million to the total revenues, depending on what assumptions you make. about the response of taxpayers to the increased tax rates. It's going to take a lot of increases in income tax to narrow that fiscal deficit very significantly. Okay, that introduces the two sides of the account. In the following sequences, I'll discuss what all this means.